Greetings and welcome to the sixth review in our What's Smoking Hot 2020 video review series. I'm going to smoke a Montecristo number 2, and I've gone ahead and cut it, but I've made an interesting cut on this that I wanted to talk about before I light the cigar, and that is I made a V-cut on this torpedo with my Calibri V-cut. I find the Calibri V-cut makes a good deep V-cut, and for me it's just perfect for torpedoes. That's just my preference. If you were to straight cut this cigar, now it's a 52 ring gauge by 156 millimeter length cigar, so it's 6¼ inches. The thinking when this first came out in the Montecristo 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 line in 1935. This is a bigger offering, 52 ring gauge. Cigars just weren't that big at that time, and to cater for the size, the the cigar was tapered to make it easier to cut and smoke. And I think the thinking was at the time that you'd want to just go past where it tapers and cut it there, so that it, you'd smoke it there where it's around 42 ring gauge, which makes sense because really we didn't have straight edge Pareo cigars of this ring gauge until the Cahiba Siglo 6 in 2003. Cigars just weren't that big, even those Robustos, and there weren't many of them around up until the early 90s, late 90s. They were 50 ring gauge, but it wasn't common to have cigars that big a ring gauge. So something to think about, I suppose. If you're going to cut a torpedo cigar, you can V-cut it or cut it just where it tapers at the shoulders, and I feel that's going to be the best spot to draw and smoke the cigar from. This is a REG in January 2020 cigar, and initially I wasn't going to smoke this in the 2020 series, but luckily enough I picked up a quarter pack this year of 24 off our forum because these are smoking so well, and I wasn't going to because I've got a few other Montecristos left in my humidor, and they're all smoking quite well, but I thought, look, I got down to a certain point, I may as well pick up another a pack, a quarter pack, just to see how they are. And in the meantime, from the time that I picked these up, these have been selling really well, much in demand. And in fact, El Prez brought out a FOH Top 20 listing just a few days ago, and the Montecristo number 1 was his number 1 for 2020. And he did a review with Ken this year, and I think they both rated it somewhere in the vicinity of 94, 95 points. So that's high praise indeed. Yeah, off the cold draw, I'm certainly getting stronger notes of cocoa than, I guess, what I can compare to other Montecristo 2s that I've had in the last 24 months. But I'm going to leave the review there. I'm going to light it up and then discuss this cigar further. I've lit that up, and in a word, the first few puffs off that is just all quality chocolate. That is outstanding. I've just got to say, I've had a number of Montecristo 2s over the years of various grade and quality, but the flavour in that is quite something else. That is just quality chocolate. Really good. We'll see how it turns out as I smack that down. Now, there's one thing I need to rectify from my last review talking about the Montecristo Specialis number 2. I mentioned Pepe Garcia finding the brand. But of course, Pepe Garcia went into partnership with Alonso Menendez, and that's what I meant to say. Alonso Menendez bought the Particulares brand in 1935. One thing I can say is Alonso Menendez, when he went into partnership with Pepe Garcia, they made a favourable decision to buy out the struggling H. Upmann factory in 1937, and that's where they transferred their Montecristo line, and that went along the way to influencing uh, the history of Cuban cigars to this day. And what I mean by that is uh, Franco and Sons were they owned Upman in running Upman in Cuba, and that was failing. And they were the official distributors of Upman in at that point in 1937 in Britain. And John Hunter Morris and Engel were the official distributors of Montecristo. So the reason I mention this is getting to the point of why the Montecristo number two and number four are such big sellers. Because in 1963, uh, John Hunter, Morris and Engel, and Francoeur and Sons merged, became Hunters and Francoeur, and Hunters and Francoeur thereafter were, I guess, worked together to distribute Montecristo in Britain, and thereafter Alfred Dunhill really worked together with Tabacuba at the time it was called, before it was called Habanos SA, to promote Montecristo in England, especially in the 70s, and that's where the Montecristo number four became the biggest selling cigar in the world, and Montecristo number two was number two behind that. That has got uh, just a beautiful combination of chocolate and citrus twang. Uh, that is how you want Montecristo to be, really. So if you're new to Montecristo and you're coming into it now in 2019, 2020, and you get a box of Montecristo number two and it's smoking like that, that's pretty much ideal. You can't ask for more than what the flavors that this is giving. And look, I'm glad that I put this What's Smoking Hot 2020 video review series for consideration on our forum, and a few members mentioned the Montecristo number two as a guess as what I had chosen, but I never, as I said, I didn't think of the Montecristo number two, but I am so glad. I'm so glad that I did. That is a delightful balance of chocolate, milk coffee, and citrus twang. Can't ask for more. You really, really can't. Um, I wanted to discuss Rapprochette because I quickly talked about that at the end of the Montecristo Specialis number two review. I mentioned that cigar was a Colorado Claro, a lighter rapid cigar. This is more of a darker Colorado, moving towards a Colorado Maduro, darker rapid cigar. And I have an admission to make. I'm not inclined to go for darker rapid Montecristo cigars, and I've tried lighter rapid, darker rapid, different type of Montecristo cigars, and I just have a preference towards lighter rapid cigars in general when it comes to Montecristo. Um, Now, as a generalization, what you find with the darker rapid in the Montecristo 2 specifically, Vitola, um, darker rapid cigars for me emphasize more of the stronger notes of cocoa and coffee and leather, perhaps. The lighter rapid cigars emphasize more nuts, citrus twang, perhaps creaminess. And it's that second flavor profile that I gravitate to. In fact, I had put away a box of Montecristo number twos from 2015 that were dark rapid, and I let them rest for a number of years, for a good three, just to let the oil settle. And I remember opening up the box. It was only a 10 count box, and the intensity of those cocoa and coffee flavors weren't to my preference. I had to let them rest a bit more, and I ended up finishing that box. And the last two or three were coming to the point where I really, really liked them. But it took, you know, well into that last fourth year until it got to the point where I liked it. Whereas I've tried light rapid Montecristo number twos. In the meantime, they're only 12 months, 18 months, 24 months old. You know, quarter pack offerings, uh, various box codes in 2018, and they were much more ready to what I like, much sooner. But this REG January in January 2020 cigar, that's just smoking a dream, really. I can understand why Rob and Ken reviewed this earlier, this cigar, and gave it such high praise, because yeah, what more can you say? It's when you get a Montecristo number two, this is pretty much how you want to smoke. That's just yeah, chocolate and citrus twang, um, milk coffee's just beautiful. It's certainly more stronger in body and flavour than the Montecristo Specialis number two, which is a smoked much differently than this cigar. But it's no less as good in my opinion. You can see I'm gonna have to force myself to put that down. Um, uh, and it gladdens me to say that Montecristo two, number two has come back uh, to the fore in its reputation, because it suffered for a number of years, many years, for its variance in its quality and construction. And look, I've had my fair share of ordinary ones over the years, but it's a cigar that as someone that loves Montecristo, it's a cigar that I always have in my humidor, and I don't smoke as much of it as I would smoke the Montecristo number four or Specialis number two, or other Montecristo cigars. But I always have it in my humidor, um, and the reason is because on the chance that I'm going to smoke one and it's going to be as outstanding as this, and that's what you're looking for when you smoke Cuban cigars. You want an experience like this. Really, what I should do there is I should leave the review there and smoke it down into the middle third and see the changes in the cigar and talk more about it then. I've come to just before the halfway point of the cigar, and of course it's smoking outstandingly. Um, uh, a common question that comes up with the Montecristo 2 is, how does it compare to the other cigars in the Montecristo line, and specifically the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Because when Montecristo first came out, as I mentioned in the previous review on the Specialis number two, uh, it was only Montecristo number one, number two, number three, number four, number five for many years, even after the Cuban government took over production of Cuban cigars in the early 60s. It wasn't until 1969 that we saw some additions to the line. And in fact, today there's 24 cigars with the recent additions of the Linear 1935 series and the Habano Specialist releases coming out, the Herederos. It's 24 cigars in the Montecristo regular production line, but the when most people think of Montecristo, if they know Cuban cigars, they're going to think of Montecristo number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The question is, what's the difference in those cigars? It comes up quite a lot on our forum, and I think the best way to answer that is the question more specifically is there a similarity in those 5 cigars? The answer is yes, there is. The 1, 3, and 4 uh, are definitely related and similar in their flavor delivery, their blends, for my liking. And I think mainly it's because they're all 42 ring gauge, and they're not too far off in their lengths from each other. The 5 is a perler and it's slightly smaller, slightly more intense, sharper in those those quintessential cocoa coffee nut flavors that we think of when we think of Montecristo. But the Montecristo number 2 out of those 5 stands out. It is different because of the ring gauge. It's a bigger cigar, so it's going to have a blend of different leaves than those other 42 ring gauge cigars in the Montecristo number 5, which is 40. I wouldn't say too different, but yes, there is a difference in the way that it tastes for me. I'm just reflecting on as I'm smoking this. Again, I've just got to put that down. As I'm smoking this, I do have a preference with darker rapid Monte to really let them rest. But look, I've got another 5 of those upstairs in my humidor, and I don't see the point in letting these rest. If they're going to smoke like that, there's absolutely no point. Um, they'll be done within 12 months for sure. So how I can summarize this review is to say that if you get the opportunity, if you like Montecristo, if you don't mind having a number 2, this is a year to get them. Get your Montecristo number 2s while they're hot and they're like this. That's my recommendation. That is just smoking so easily and so wonderfully. Strength would be around the medium mark, and the body is the flavor is they're not overly intense. They're just nuanced in their quality. That's the best way of describing it. So I'm really fortunate. That is a hot cigar, and I'm glad that I've brought this cigar to you. I hope that you've enjoyed the review as per normal. Thanks for your time. I look forward to seeing you again in the next review. Until then, happy smoking.